So, how many people have heard of an automatic radionic analysis? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, and the rest of you don't even know about it. Okay, that's why I'm here to educate you about this, because you will find out about it. At some point, it will cross your path, because there's been a lot of... It's becoming quite well known, as you'll see. So what is an automatic radionic analysis, and where did it come from? Well, it has an interesting history. Dr. Bill Nelson started with an instrument called the Quantum Med. And Dr. Bill Nelson, if you look him up on Wikipedia, has, 35 degrees and worked for NASA. I don't know, he did all these things. Supposedly he's the one that single-handedly brought back Apollo 13 or something. Okay? May or may not be true. I don't know.
In jail now?
He had really good intentions. I tell you, this was a good idea. And he worked with Dr. Greg Morgan on this. That was my mentor, who was, and my teacher, my original teacher besides Ludi. Those were my two mentors. They had a great idea. I thought it was an excellent idea. Here was the idea. He was going to take an EEG, connect it up to the brain or the wrist or whatever, an electroencephalograph, and connect it to a computer, and send a signal into a homeopathic remedy, and then send the signal back to the computer, back to the person, and see if they would have a response, an EEG response. And so they had a big box of remedies, and they had all the wires set up to where it would run a signal through each one of the homeopathic remedies, and it would cycle, and the computer would choose each one and send the signal through, and that was... The idea was to get a readout then on each one of the different homeopathic remedies and make a chart and say, okay, if you need this remedy, obviously you have this problem. It was going to be an analysis diagnostic tool. Yeah? You with me so far? It was a great idea. I loved it. The only problem is it didn't work. They tried it, they built all the equipment, and it just didn't produce any results. Did not stop Bill Nelson from going forward. So what his idea was, is instead of using homeopathic remedies, he would use what's called a random event generator, or an REG. Okay? What's a random event generator? That is a computer program that randomly picks a 0 or a 1, and this was based on some studies that was done at Princeton. I'll show you some of those, where there were anomalies noted. They started a random number generator, and theoretically a random number generator should produce 50% zeros and 50% ones. That would be, kind of normal. That's how it works. They noticed at Princeton that it went out of balance a little bit when there were strong signals. Like, for example, the day that more people in the whole world watched television for Princess Diana's funeral than at any other time in history, and the random number generators, they've set these up all over the world, went out of balance a little bit. Yeah? And right before 9/11, 5 hours before 9/11, they went out of balance a little bit. So Bill got a hold of this information, and he thought, well, we'll just put in a random number generator, and we'll use our database that Greg Morgan had written, that 17,000 different tunings, and it'll go through there and randomly pick out those things, and that'll be what's wrong with the person. That'll tell you what the diagnosis is. Well, the trick of it is this question: can the mind influence a computer? Okay? The answer is yes, it can. Joseph McMoneagle worked for, he was part of the Stargate project, and he is one of the world's top 10 remote viewers. They gave Joe a task to see if he could influence a computer. Okay? There's just a little history on him. Anybody see Staring at Goats? I think, is that the name of the movie? Yeah, Men Who Stare at Goats, right? Ingo Swann and McMoneagle and all those guys were part of that whole Stargate project that they kind of loosely based the movie on. Anyway, Joe is, he's the real thing. I've met Joe. We did some experiments. He really knows what he's doing. He can really do this stuff. Anyway, so they gave him the task. They had a random event generator, but the random event generator was allowed, this was a photon shooting onto a film plate, photons. It was programmed so it could not go outside of that diamond shape. So the photons could come out randomly at any place at any time, except they could never go outside of this diamond shape. So Joe's task was to focus on the computer and tell the computer energetically or whatever with his mind to shoot photons outside of the diamond shape. What do you think happened?
Shot him outside.
Joe was able to get photons to go outside of that diamond shape. Okay? Now this is I'm talking a very well-trained person. He trained with Bob Monroe at Monroe Institute, worked in remote viewing for years, and he was able to influence this computer to shoot something outside of what was pre-programmed. It was a difficult task, but he was able to do it. Even better, this just a side note to that, they did another test of the random things, put it in a time capsule, and then 6 months later told Joe, okay, go back in time and see if you can get the computer to shoot outside of the diamond shape. What do you think happened? Joe was successful. True. He was able to go back in time because this stuff is totally outside of time and space. Really great. Anyway, I love Joe's stuff. He's got several books out. I highly recommend them. So this was the peer research that they were trying to do more of this. They did a lot of research with these random number generators and different ways of influencing the computer psychically. And they did it over 28 years, and they did thousands of experiments involving millions of trials, and they were performed by several hundred operators. But the observed effects were usually quite small, in the order of a few parts in 10,000 on average. Okay? Let me just keep this in perspective here. Okay? A person was able to influence the computer a few times out of 10,000. Right? Okay. So we have to keep this in perspective, what's happening here. Well, Bill Nelson thought, okay, if a person can influence a random number generator, that would be considered the operator. They would just have to focus on the computer, and the computer will tell you what's wrong with you. It'll go through a list of 17,000 different things, and it'll pick out about 100 of them, and that's what your diagnosis is. That's what's wrong with you. And that was born the quantum zeroid, the QXCI. And then it changed the name to Scio, and I think the last one's called the INDIGO, I think. It keeps changing names because he was trying to stay ahead of the law. But, so he would plug people into this, and this was a headband and wristbands that were supposed to be biofeedback, and they are biofeedback. But what's happening inside the computer is a random event generator. Now in the original model, in the old DOS model, which was called the Quantum Med, there was an intake form. And you had to answer a lot of questions. Okay, how many cups of coffee do you drink a day? How many cigarettes? How many alcohol? Okay, what kind of food? Blah, 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 right? There was a pretty good intake form. And that would produce, this one's called the L.I.F.E machine, because there are lots of offshoots from Bill. These people all work together with Bill, and they say, God, this guy's making millions of dollars. I think I can do that too. And he did. He made a lot of money. But I'll tell you how he did that in a minute. Oops, this is another offshoot, the Oberon. This one's from Russia, and they use these supposedly special headphones that can read your brain waves better than this, and it's still randoming up, event generator. Oh, these are a whole bunch of different ones. The Iceberg, the Aurum, goes on and on. Vita scanning, Metascan, ETA scan, Introspect, Oberon. These are all offshoots that have come out later. Quantec got really big, and they're trying to go medical. Look at these guys. Yeah. It's impressive. It's impressive. But this one comes from yourdiagnosis.com. You can go online and do this yourself. And you can answer, if you answer enough questions, you'll get basically a diagnosis. That has some value, okay? After the quantum med, when it went to quantum zeroid, they threw that out, and they just went with the random event generator. The problem was, it was completely inconsistent, right? If you do 2 times the same reading, she's nodding her head back there, she's had experience with it, I can tell. 1 minute you have cancer, and the next minute you don't have it anymore, you've got diabetes. And then the next minute you've got liver flukes, okay? So people called Bill out on this, and of course he has a lot of mumbo jumbo about why that happens, and you should never do 2 readings right in, one after the other. Goes on and on. But this part of it wasn't bad. It's just that it shouldn't cost as much as it did. So this is a list of some of them. This is the core. Now, at least I have to say, with the core energetics, this is Kieran Schmidt, and I know Kieran. He's a good guy. He's a good scientist. He's done his homework. At least he's honest about it. He says, look, this is a random event generator, and core stands for the coincidence response. Okay? He's saying it's a coincidence response, and so sometimes it will have this coincidence factor. At least he's honest about it. Anyway, this is a whole list of different ones that have shot off from the original Bill Nelson. So in order to give you an example of what a random event generator looks like, I would like to have 2 volunteers. Okay? Okay, come on up. One of you will be the practitioner, and the other one will be the client. So I'm going to let you 2 decide who's going to be the practitioner and who's going to be the client. You want to be the client, okay? And your name is? Geraldine, okay. Come on up. And you're Pamela. You're going to be the practitioner, okay? All right. Now, we don't have a computer random event generator handy, so I made one. I made a plastic bag, and these are the possibilities. Now, this is only a little bit of a possibility, right? But we're going to find out what's wrong with Geraldine. Okay, you ready? Okay. No, you don't catch him. You're the client. Okay. Okay. There you go. And that's quite a bit, probably too many. Now, could you read some of those off? And tell me what is wrong with Geraldine. Okay?
She has a hepatic biliary system.
Biliary system. Well, she does have that for sure. So everybody has. Everybody has a. Yeah, go ahead and give them to her. She has one. So maybe that means she has an issue. Let's find out. Okay?
Yes, definitely. Sorry.
Now that's called a filtering system in the computer.
She has inflammations.
Okay. And what else?
We need to look at her dermatologic system.
Okay.
Wow.
Okay.
Oops.
It's a filtering system again.
Poisons and toxins.
Okay. There's that filter coming in again.
She has some sugars that need balancing.
Okay. Yeah, okay. She's filtering. Now she's doing a real conscious filtering here. Right. Everywhere. Everything everywhere.
Okay. Systemic.
Oh, and it's systemic too. Okay. What else?
Energy centers.
Okay. Energy centers, chakras. Okay.
And the
cellular level. No, go ahead. What's that?
We want to look at your ovaries.
Okay.
And your liver.
Okay.
Metal poisons.
Metal poisoning. Okay. Overstimulation.
Overstimulation of the nucleus. Well, the nucleus goes with the cell.
Oh, there we go. We've already got a match.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's good.
And the gastrointestinal system.
Okay. All right. Now, let me show you how this works. Okay? So, Geraldine, are you aware of any of these problems?
Yes.
Which ones?
All of them.
No, don't prompt now.
Okay.
We'll just find out. So, are you aware that you have any of these problems?
Yes.
Which ones?
Well, I know this one.
Okay.
Uh-oh, something dropped.
That's okay. It's the filter. Okay, which is that one? That's the hepatic biliary system.
Inflammation.
Okay.
overstimulation,
Okay.
duodenum,
Okay.
energy centers,
Chakras. That's pretty general stuff,
metal
but
poisoning,
okay. Metal poisonings. Okay. Okay.
liver.
Okay. So you're aware that you have these problems, right?
Yes.
So therefore, if these are all true, then all of this must be true. Is that correct? And probably all of the ones on the floor, too. Now, we had a very small sampling, but imagine that we just went through 60,000 different tunings, and she got a couple handfuls of things that are wrong with her, right? And she knows, she goes through the list, and she says, oh, inflammation, overstimulation, duodenum. I know about all these things. Therefore, it must be a true analysis. And that is basically the premise now of how it works. Now, the difficult part of this is this. I'm gonna just show you. We'll try just a little bit more. Now, okay, ready?
I want to find out what's wrong with you.
No, wait. Okay, ready?
You supposed to catch them?
No. Well, you stand a little bit close. That was good. She's the practitioner. Okay. Okay. Now let's see what's wrong with her.
Okay.
Oh, I like the one I saw already. It said non-specific.
That's good.
Okay. Now. All right. Now, see if any of them are the same.
Her
Pharynx, no.
No, I didn't
That
have
was
that one.
no.
nerve plexus,
Okay.
I didn't have that one.
non-specific blood,
Okay.
No, I didn't have that one.
septic infection.
Okay, so basically none of them are the same. And let me tell you that this is the downfall of these random number generator systems. And there you go. Is that they're not consistent. They don't hold up, and that's what people figure out after a while. Now, they have a lot of mumbo-jumbo of why that's true. For example, you know, your biofield just got affected by just us measuring and checking before, so if we check it 5 minutes later, it's going to be totally different. Is that true when you do your SE5 measurements, or do you tend to have the same problems that you're working on fairly consistently?
Same problems fairly consistent.
Okay, all right. So that answers my question. So this mumbo-jumbo about your field gets all jumbled up just by one measurement and one balancing, and therefore everything's different 5 minutes later, you know, like before you had problems in your liver, and now you have problems in your colon. That doesn't quite hold up, does it? I mean, all these things. Nothing was in here that was in there, the same one before. And it's a little bit of a tricky system, I have to say, of how they've done it. Now, there are certain systems out there that claim to be repeatable, and they use what are called filters. You know, for example, I know one of them was focusing on the astrological, or at least we surmise that they're focusing on the astrological and the numerological data, so that it'll shift. Once it's done an analysis, it holds that analysis and shifts it very slowly and only picks out a few new things at a time, so it appears to stay consistent. Does that mean that's what problem she has? No, it still doesn't mean that. The initial analysis is still random, and there is a coincidence factor. Now, like I Ching, for example, if you were to look down, now this is a little different. If you were to look down, Pamela, without them on your shoulders and falling on her randomly, and you see a pattern here, and you started picking them out, that's a whole different story, because your subconscious could probably tune in and actually find those. But that's consciousness interactivity, not computer randomity. Do you understand the difference? Okay, I think
It's just so pretty.
that is consciousness interactivity and not randomity. Yeah? Thank you very much, both of you, for helping me out with this little experiment, and I think I've demonstrated my point.
So what do these things cost? Anybody know? They're expensive.
5,000.
Oh, 5,000, come on. They're $12,000 to $30,000, okay? But, originally, but wait. If you get 3 of your friends to buy this, yours is free! How many do you think you could sell like that? That's what Bill did. Okay? So how did Bill make money if he was doing this? You had to pay him $1,500 a year to keep your software turning on. Otherwise, he shuts it down. And I know people that it happened to. You know, they bought this, they invested their $30,000. They were doing trainings for $10,000 to learn how to use this thing, okay? And then you had to pay $1,500 a year, otherwise your software would automatically shut down after a year. No way around it. And I know people that it happened to after they'd invested all their money, and then it's like, you know, I can't afford to keep this going, and you know, their instrument they had to throw away because their software wouldn't work. Okay, now on the other side of this, let's go back to old-fashioned radionics. Okay, Galen Hieronymus took the vital signs of an astronaut every hour from the Earth to the Moon. Okay, and recorded them. Everything that they were doing on the spacecraft, you know, the heart rate and the breathing rate and all that, he was doing with a photograph of an astronaut here on Earth. Okay, he did 500 pages of entries. This guy was dedicated. And then he sent it to NASA. Guess what? Guess what? It matched all their measurements taken on board the spacecraft hour by hour. Okay? So what do you think NASA does now?
Arresting.
No, they built their own room. I have a friend who has an SE5, who has a friend that's an astronaut, was an astronaut, now he's a medical doctor. And he told him the story that when he was in his astronaut training, they took him into this special room, and it had a big turntable in the middle of the room, and he had to take off all his clothes, and he stood on this turntable, and they said, don't move, and it slowly turned, and they took a three-dimensional holographic picture of the person, of him, of the astronaut. So on the way out of the room, of course, he's getting dressed, and he's saying, so what's this for? They said, well, in case you get sick while you're out in space, we can fix you from here. Yeah, true story. The second part of the story is, so I told my friend, I said, I'm not even going to mention his name because I'll put this in. But I said, next time you talk to him, can you get a little more information for me? This is really cool. So he said, sure, no problem. You know, I talk to him every once in a while. And so he dialed him up and he said, so, you know, we need some more information about this. What? That never happened. I don't know where you got that story. No, absolutely not. Hung up on me. Okay? But I guess evidently he was always in trouble for kind of getting outside the boundaries. So, when one of these random number generator or automatic analysis units can even have 10% of the accuracy that Hieronymus did, I would be even at 10%, I would be very interested, because then you know you're on to something and it could be refined. Right now it's 0%. I mean, there's no accuracy. A doctor in California just bought an SE5, and he had both the L.I.F.E and the quantum zeroid, and they're sitting in his closet, and he said, I'm so disgusted with them. He just, you know, he's not even going to try and sell them. He wouldn't even want to sell them to anybody, he said. They don't work. He invested a lot of money. So, is there any hope for automatic analysis? This is my punchline coming up. Okay. So I will mention, just on a side note, I didn't put that in there, but you know, Kopin machines, they were the old-fashioned dial stuff, and they came out with the Mars 3, which is really similar to what we're doing with SE5. They did add that random number generator as an automatic thing in there as a sideline. You can use it or you can't use it. I will not put it in our software. It does not work. You know, I don't want to compete with those guys. But the hope is, now this isn't quite radionics, but it is really cool. It happens to be called the Scio, of all things, which is what Bill Nelson's second device was called. They call it the Scio, but it's spelled the same way. It's a little handheld device that interfaces with your cell phone, with your smartphone, through the cloud, and you can point it at anything, and it'll tell you the chemical makeup of whatever you pointed at. You guys know about Kickstarter?
Yep.
Kickstarter's group funding. So they needed $200,000 to get this into manufacturing. I did it with one of the Geiger counters, you know, since Fukushima went off. I thought I better get myself a Geiger counter. So one of the Kickstart ones was with a Geiger counter, and I got a really nice Geiger counter for greatly reduced price because we were all funding it. You know, it's one of the levels you could get to. So they needed $200,000 to get this off the ground. Where do you think they ended up? Did they get their funding? Yeah, they got their funding. They got $2.7 million in funding for this. I mean, this is exciting. This is really exciting. And I have a short film.
The technology at our fingertips can help us do amazing things.
It can help us navigate the world, know which restaurant to book tonight, or know what song is playing on the radio. But when it comes to the actual stuff around us, if you're not sure or just don't know, well, you're on your own.
I'm Damien.
And I'm Dror. And we're excited to introduce Scio. Scio is the first molecular sensor that fits in the palm of your hand.
It scans the molecular fingerprint of an object and provides relevant instant information about its chemical makeup.
You can use it to log the chemical fingerprint, record it, and share with your friends.
Imagine if there was a way to know which watermelon is sweeter.
When is that avocado going to ripen? How many calories, carbs, or proteins are in that shake?
How your plants are doing. Imagine if there was a way to know the chemical makeup of everything we come in contact with. The applications are endless.
Scio uses this tiny optical sensor called a spectrometer, which absorbs light reflected back from an object and breaks it down into a spectrum. The spectrum is then sent to our cloud for analysis, and our algorithms sends back the result to your phone in real time.
Spectrometers are used today in labs around the world, but they're too large and expensive for everyday use.
To fulfill our vision, we need to make a tiny spectrometer that can be mass-produced at low cost.
We recruited an amazing R&D team that redesigned the sensor from the ground up, using low-cost optics and advanced signal processing algorithms.
It took us 3 years and the effort of many talented engineers to create our sensor. We now have a working product and several applications with many more to come.
When you back this project and order your own Scio, you get apps for scanning food, medicine, and plants. With these apps, you can begin exploring the world around you. With any app, the more you scan, the more Scio learns about the things you really want to know.
Scio is our latest design, and we're ready to take it to mass production.
What I find exciting about Scio is that it empowers us all to explore new frontiers right under our noses. You don't have to be a scientist, you just have to follow your curiosity. And every time you scan, you're helping to build the world's first database of matter. That has tremendous implications for research, for medicine, for education, for our food system, and for our environment.
You can also get our development kit and build applications of your own.
Back our project, join our community, and start to Scio.
It's a real thing. They use these type of spectrometers in laboratories. This is just a really small handheld ones. I've read some articles. Within the next probably 3 to 5 years, they'll be in all airports. They'll have a laser that can tell from 30 feet away everything you've eaten, including drugs, anything you've touched, including explosives. It'll give them a complete chemical readout of everything. Yeah? And hopefully that'll do away with these silly backscatter X-ray machines. I highly recommend never standing in one. I opt out. I go for the massage. Hey, it's free. This is just a little bit about the SE5. It comes as a complete package with a laptop computer and you know, everything you need, the little camera. The thing that I didn't show you, which is really cool, introduced this, and Jan got me onto this and helped me develop it because he was into color therapy. He loved the SE5 and he said, you know, is there any way we could combine these two? So we created a little color wand here. So we can shift through like the Dinshaw colors, and we've added a few other colors in there. And then when you're running your balancing program, now the first time I did this, I didn't quite know what to expect. You'll see on my YouTube video, I had gotten it in the mail, and I said, okay, first thing I have to do is make a video for it. So I did everything like normal. I turned on the program and I pointed at myself and I said, and now I'll show you how it works. You know, and my eyes sort of glaze over and I'm going, oh my God, this really works. Jan, you didn't warn me. I didn't say that on the video. I said, I'll be right back after I'm done balancing. So I left it that way on the video because it really was real. It just about knocked me off my socks. This is called the remote balancer, and it does have the same scalar amplifier module in it. You can put a photo in it, and it uses little hologram cards, which are pre-programmed. So we have about 20 different cards here that are, this is a picture of a hologram card. This is not the hologram, that's just my logo. On the back is a hologram. Why a hologram? Okay, you guys all know about power balance, right? The little sports bands. You guys all know about those? Yeah, a little bit. That's just the very beginnings were with using holograms, and then a lot of companies got on the bandwagon. They started programming these holograms, and they were getting results of, they hold, because of the crystalline structure in the hologram, when you program them with the SE5, it holds the informational field really well. And so with these hologram cards, once you put it inside of the instrument, it starts sending it out into the field. And of course with a photo you can target it to your client or whatever. So we've got a whole bunch of different holograms that are pre-programmed, like sleep, DNA activation, food clearing, enhancing your garden. It really is radionics for dummies. It's limited in its scope, but you can use reagents, right? So you can be pretty creative. There's just no analysis ability with it whatsoever. But it's a nice little add-on. And this was an example of what one test that a friend of mine was working together with Ludi on it. They programmed some holograms to preserve the fruit. And this one, of course, didn't get the hologram, and see for yourself. You know, this is, when you see it, you can believe it kind of thing. Just try it. Try these experiments. This is all experimental research. Go for it. Try them yourself. But there is another company. They did several different double-blind studies, controlled studies. They're really well-done studies. And here's some on bicycles, like they had them doing bicycle. How fast can they do the bicycle? And then with the holographic chip, and how many watts can they produce? They were producing, you know, like a generator. And this one was for reduction of pain. They had 246 patients and a placebo group. They were, you know, so they did all this to make sure that it was not just sticking on the hologram that worked. Good success with that one. Sleep worked really well with sleep. I've used that one too. It works great. This one was on rhinosinusitis. Had good results on that. 93% success rate of symptom relief. It's not bad, you know, for something you just stick on. Yeah.
Do you have any experience with the flea medallions? I think there's maybe a...
I haven't, no, but somebody brought that up to me the other day saying, you know, why don't you come up with a little holographic dog collar for fleas? And I thought, now that's a good idea. So somebody's already done it, is that true?
They've done it, but I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
It doesn't work.
Okay, that one doesn't work. They're not using the
Yeah,
SE5.
I've only had 2 people. 2 people did it, and they haven't had a problem yet, so...
Oh, cool. Okay.
But you tried it?
Yeah, I tried it twice and 2 dogs.
I'd like to talk to you afterwards.
Okay, interesting. Well, anyway, we've got a little personal balance where you can put in different holograms as well. You can wear it on your belt, and it's, you know, we used to have the SA2, which was the little tiny programmable carry on your belt kind of thing, version of the SE5 that Bill had created. And this one's kind of taking that one. These, by the way, all of these also do EMF protection in a way, which is what I'm going to show you next. This is another picture of this is just a room balancer. You can't send it to a person via remote. You just kind of change, I called it an environmental enhancer. So if you put in eliminate negative energies and you have this in your room, it sort of clears the room of negative energies and entities and things like that. We cleared a whole restaurant one day when I went. They were all drinking, you know, drinking alcohol, and put this one in. Everybody, within 10 minutes, they left their drinks standing on the table. Everybody just got up and left. It was pretty cute. So this was, before Bill passed away, he had invented a little thing called the Scalar Plus, and we scaled it down, because he never got it in the market, but afterwards we scaled it down, and it became a little item you can wear, and what it does is it sweeps through bio-friendly frequencies, like that, and it goes through all the bio-friendly frequencies about 30,000 times per day. So when it's closer to your body will orient itself back to the bio-friendly frequencies and not to the Wi-Fi and the cell phone and the smart meters. You guys all know about smart meters, I hope. If you don't know, educate yourself really quickly because they're coming like a storm. It's just amazing. Huh?
Are people able to find it?
There is some success. Depends on the state you live in. In some states, they're going with police force to change the smart meters. Change the analog meters out from people trying to stop the people from going into their own home, breaking into their home. Anyway, we had this lady in Bulgaria did a live dark field microscope blood test of the Scio, but I want to show you what happens. You can see from her face she's not the healthiest person to begin with. I mean, I can see that anyway, just from my own knowledge. And so she tested her blood first, and it was pretty clumpy to begin with. Yeah, this is not... Each one of these cells should have space around them. So she was already suffering a bit from whatever, I don't know, but, obviously she's having some issues. So I asked her if she would make a 10-minute cell phone call and then test her blood again. You guys ready for this? Whoa. I know. It looks worse on the computer. Yeah, it's very clumped together. So, as a remedy, I asked her then to put on her Scio and turn it on for 10 minutes and take her blood again. Yeah? And this one is after the Scio for 10 minutes. Yeah? Not bad, huh? Not perfect yet. I should have said, okay, then use it for an hour or something. I didn't think of that. Yeah, anyway, that's a little blood test we did. We also did I was in Switzerland and I had a booth there, and so I thought, we'll use the SE5 and we'll check the chi stagnation on each side of the body and see what a cell phone does to it. So first I had them turn off their cell phone and lay it far away, and I checked the right side of their body without the cell phone, no Scio on or anything, and the left side of their body. And this was 28 people, and I just averaged them all together, and it came out about between 4.9% and 5% on the left and right side of the body. Then I just had them, I did not have them make a call, I just had them turn on their cell phone and hold it in the right hand, right? Because the cell phone's always signaling to the tower and connecting. It went up to 49% in the hand that I had them all hold it in the right hand because I wanted to get some kind of control. 49% chi stagnation, so the chi was blocked on the right side of the body about 50%, almost 50% on all of the people. This was an average of 28 people, some more, some less, but basically about 50%, 49.29%. On the left side of the body, even though they were holding it on their right hand, it was blocking the chi on the left side of the body to 37%. I thought that was very interesting and a lot, very high. So then I had them go ahead and put on the Scio and turn it on, and we tested again with them holding the cell phone. Now this is in their right hand still. They have the Scio on, their body, within just a minute, I let them have it on for just a minute before we tested, and it dropped it down to below the level where they had no cell phone or anything. So their system, their chi flow energy was responding to the Scio, even with a cell phone in their hand, better than they started with to begin with. So that was fun. Okay, now for my new thing. We just got these. I got these shipped here because I haven't seen them. He was in Bali with me a couple months ago going, when do I, because I had a prototype, and he's just going, salivating, going, when do I get one? I said, it'll just be a couple weeks. Oh, I'm so sorry. It took us a couple months to get this finished. But they came out beautifully. And this is the same thing as the plastic one with some enhancements. But the thing about the plastic ones is I had so many women complaining that they were ugly. And they didn't want to wear them. I said, well, just put them under your shirt. You don't have to see it. I said, yeah, but make it pretty, please. So I met some really cool designers in Bali, and they just tricked it out. And they did everything to it. They put tensor rings in it. These are tensor rings around the outside. There's 2 tensor rings in it. It's filled with orgonite underneath of here. It's got the 5 metals, the 5 magic metals from India. And then he made this really cool design of just the cover for it. And so now it's beautiful. And it's more expensive. But it's really nice. We have them in gold and in silver. And they are really, really nice units. And they do the same thing as the Scio. And I have had a couple of very sensitive people say, you know, this has more energy. They had the old one too. And I had some prototypes that I lent around and they said, wow, this has more energy. They can feel it. I'm maybe not that sensitive. But I do like the looks of it. And I have to say, this is a really funny story. So I had my original prototype on, a silver one, and I went to this little town in Bali where it's just Bali people. There are like no white people. And I was going to search for a washing machine for one of our employees there. And I'm walking across the street, and there are 4 or 5 Bali guys sitting down. They're all chatting and everything. But now, you know, they're like hooting and hollering and whistling. You know, so I look over my shoulder because I know there's got to be some hot chick back there, you know. And they're all just going, wow, you know. So I'm looking around, and they're going, no, like this. And I look down, and they were pointing to my Scio. And they're going, wow. I'm going, okay, if it can get 5 guys that excited, and there's no chick behind me, it's got to be doing pretty well. Okay, the last thing I just want to talk briefly about, I'm going to wind up here, is the balancing only unit. And it looks a lot like the remote balancer. The difference is that we added another circuit board to it, and it interfaces with your software. So when you make an analysis on your SE5, you can simply unplug from your SE5 and plug into the balancing only unit. You can move your SE5 to another computer and start another analysis while this one starts doing your balancing for you. So this is what we call, you know, a sample workstation. Each one of the balancing only units comes with its own laptop, and so you would just use basically one SE5 and do your analysis on each computer. Now I have a guy in Singapore, I should have put his picture in here, he had taken a picture of me. He has 10 SE5s and he has 10 balancing only units. He works on about 120 people a day, and he does it for free. Yeah, he's retired, and he's just a wonderful man. So anyway, I'll be at the booth mostly tomorrow. I'll go ahead and go over there now after, because we're going to have the dinner break, so I'll be in the booth. And I'd like to thank you all for coming. It was wonderful talking with you, and great to thank you.